All right, it's still, this is my second journal entry. Is October 23rd, 2025, and so today, it came to me, what I'm calling like full disclosure, how I'm going to make my sign, and I showed it, 3 parts. So I think I'm still going to have one hanging from a branch, which is actually that one right there. That's not as thick. And the siding, I mean, not the siding, but the plywood that I'm using, for one thing, it's underlayment plywood. It's not supposed to be, it's not pressure treated. But I painted it real good. And, if it's underlayment, well, on one side I'm going to have a climbing wall. On the other side, I'm going to keep it painted. It'll be all right. But the thing is, see, to make a climbing wall, I'm going to have to, probably, screw in some screen to hold the mortar. And then I'm going to have to make some places where the rocks can be supported every now and then by wood. Because it's made out of wood, And it'll be all right. For a good long time. It'll serve the purpose, at least for me, and maybe you, my grandchildren. Because on this side here, I'm going to say climb every mountain. And that's why I want to make this journal entry. For one thing, Because on this side where the climbing wall is, I was going to say, climb every mountain. Because that's the way it has to be. Now, look. What my dad would be saying, like on my thing, what I'm going to make, Like I'm going to have my letter. Actually, and I'm going to make my letter as if it were from my parents. Don Henry and Sharon Joan. That's their first and middle names, And that gives them distinction. And it proves that nothing is ever lost. You ain't gonna lose your parents or your kids. And on that note right there, nothing is ever lost. See, it come to my understanding by listening to Alan Watts, because I was just listening to him. All right, that you can't lose. You will never lose what you are. Okay. You can do a lot of things, but you're never going to lose what you are. So the metaphors from nature, like we learn from nature, That's God. If God is teaching us anything, He's teaching us through nature, And we are like a filter. We can understand certain things. Okay. So like me, for example, if I go kayaking in the water like I like to do, then, well, I'm going to understand something about that and how that parallel process. There's a parallel process here that I'm learning. Okay. In this situation, so in this situation, like that, they do a comparative analysis. And so, let's use water for an example, okay? The water current, goes like that, and the waves go like that, okay? Well, what if a person was to say, look at those, well, look, you gotta understand, look at that ocean push those waves. Or look at that river make those waves, all right? Well, we are both the wave and the river. We are both the wave and the ocean. The wave subsides back into the ocean, but The wave is an expression of the ocean. It's an expression. It's differentiated from the rest of the body of water for a moment in time, okay, in life, just like us. All right, we are we are the wave, all right, but we are also the ocean. You know, we're for an expression for a certain part of time, and that's who we are, and we're showing who we are. Okay, you are showing who you are, and then you know you're gonna go back into the ocean because you are the ocean. But for a moment in time in life, you are something of distinction. You are something of distinction. My grandchildren. And so you can't lose what you are. All right, but still, everything considered, you gotta be who you choose to be. Okay, not just to the tapes that run in your head might say, you know, or your teacher might have said to you, or your sister, or brother, your mom, your dad, whoever's important in your life, you know, might have said something to you that might have made you think something about like who you are or something, or about, you know, your capabilities or your nature. But the thing is, do not let that define you. Bob Dylan would say that. John F. Kennedy would say that too. So would Dr. Martin Luther King. And I could name off a bunch of other ones too. So, look, I said I was just, you know, like listening to Alan Watts, so I was. All right. Okay, so now I got Alan Watts on. And I'm just saying, like, I know about, you know, the algorithms and stuff like that. It's kind of like a library, you know, you get stuck in a certain part of the card catalog. If you're looking under a certain subject or a phrase or whatever, you know. But that's like the filter. You have to have filters if you're going to understand anything, okay? At all. You got to filter it according to, you know, separating it from one thing from another. And making comparisons. And it's a scientific way. But the point that we are a filter, I mean, even like our own eyes can only filter a certain amount of the spectrum of the possibilities of everything that actually can be seen, because there's a lot more to see and we don't even see it with our eyes, but there's a lot more that can be seen because other beasts and animals and insects and all that see differently than we do. And the aliens they see different. I think one of these makes allusion to the aliens. Now, nothing could be more likely. Because in the whole concept of eternity, are you serious that there's only going to be one thing of a certain kind? There's only going to be this world of life, living force out of the whole existence of all eternity? That's stupidity thinking. It's nonsensical. How could you ever even come to that kind of deduction if you knew anything about mathematics or reason, or up means up and down means down, or 1 + 1 is 2, or anything like that? Any basic things, the first principles of actually consciousness and existence and life would teach you such basic matters. It is an impossibility to even consider that we, in a scenario of that there's the concept of never ending, that we would be the only living organism with intelligence, and that there would be one God that would be just ruling over us, this world, and that's it. And out of a whole world of everything, of infinity and unendingness, reality, and time doesn't even matter. Okay, in that situation, and like be just be one thing, one little thing concentrating on by one entity called God. Jesus Christ, man. Yeah. The sky is the limit as far as we can see. and the limit even goes beyond what we can see. Because we already, you know that object lesson of this people going to outer space and landing on the moon. Look, some people even believe that the moon has just been created by the aliens and it's really hollow. It's like a satellite doing something so that the people on the earth can survive, because we're all going to be just rounded up like cattle and eaten up. If it is in the macrocosm like it is in the microcosm, then we're going to be eaten up. We're pretty much doomed. So you better live your life courageously on that note, because, I mean, you only got one shot. You're like a little sparkler, you know. But it matters how hard you're going to blow on them flames to make that fire come out and that sparkle and everything like that and make it big. Make it beautiful, make it bold. And remember, you can never lose who you are. And the main thing is that you're not a noun, you're a verb. Okay? You're not a thing that's doing something. You are the doing of the thing that you're doing. And you also are the observer of what you're doing. Alright? You will even observe what you even do unconsciously. And by mistake, and with purpose, and with any other kind of discipline, constrictions, framework, encouragement, outside motivational force like drugs or whatever, anything that you can conceive of, well, you observe that. And you do that. So you both are and you also are what you do. What you are is never going to be separated from you. They say, you know, the whole thing about God and everything is that, you know, God created creation so that he could observe, God could, like, you know, like, observe God's self. That's almost like blasphemy. I know it is, but look, if you're trying to think into these bigger realms of rationalization and trying to make sense of something that we can't understand, it's kind of like the fish trying to understand the water that the fish lives in. Well, you know, fish, you know, might get out of the water every now and then and see what that's like, but they can't live there. I don't know what it is to live there. So, well, look, I'm just going to show you. This one is, the secret isn't what's buried in Antarctica. It's why God let it freeze instead of destroying it. If you're seeing this, I haven't been transferred yet. Transferred has got hashtags around it, so I'm not sure what that means. Transferred yet. Learning about God's ancient enemy was my biggest nightmare. True story. I was a Navy SEAL sent to the Antarctica, and what we found. Look, now that's pretty interesting, isn't it? Now, Alan Watts. Why the chosen ones must walk alone. Alan Watts. Why God detaches the chosen ones from the world. And then if you, Joe Dispenza, if you are about to win, you will see this video. Dr. Joe Dispenza. I know his story. If you are about to win, you will see this story. Joe, Motivational Mastery, 3 weeks ago. And then, all right, look, I'm gonna just go. Oh, well. See, there's another Alan Watts. Life begins at 70. Holy crap. Huh. Oh, okay. Oh, look, now there's another couple Alan Watts ones because, see, I'm listening to Alan Watts right now. Never beg, never chase. Alan Watts' final radio interview. And the Akashic Files, Tesla's secret. All right, well, here.
Pine, or maybe just an abstract concept of treeness. But that image, that concept, is not a tree. It's an idea about trees. A real tree is something quite different. It's the rustling of leaves in the wind, the rough texture of bark against your hand, the way light filters through branches, the smell of sap, the sound of birds nesting in its limbs. The word tree is like a menu. It describes something, but you can't eat the menu, can you? The menu is not the meal. And yet, we spend most of our lives eating the menu and wondering why we're still hungry.
Yeah, wondering why you're hungry. And what are you hungry for? Now look. So I come to two considerations worth noting today. And one is I got the whole thing, the whole plan for my climb every mountain Declaration of Independence kind of sign on the other side. And on my side, climb every mountain. And in order to climb every mountain, you got to try to understand a little bit about what things are. And you can't be swallowed up by bullshit. So, you know, I come to a conclusion now. I mean, I'm still working on the plans, how I can finish, embellishing finishing my climbing wall, because right now it's just plywood. And I got 2 sheets. I got them primed on one side, and then when they're dried, I'll flip it over, prime on the other side, then maybe give them a second coat of priming, since it's not really exterior plywood, and then paint them and add it. And then I already have plans for what I'm going to say. But I really need to get some scaffolding, and I got to price some scaffolding so I can actually stand up there and actually, paint it and write it. And then I gotta I gotta finish out my climbing wall. But the thing is, I'm climbing. The thing is, the flip side of the coin. On one side I got my climbing wall, on the other side I got my political kind of stuff, involvement. Okay, because like he said, God's chosen ones have to be alone or something like that. See, actually what that means, that doesn't mean like being a recluse, like not being around people or nothing. What that means is that you solid on the inside, you're differentiated, and you know how you're going to be. That's it. You got your boundaries, you got yourself framed up, you're strong, okay? You're independent, you're unique, you're distinct. You have distinguished yourself among men, among women. Just, so to speak, like if you're a woman among women, if you're a man among men. Or if you're a human among humans. Among humans, I mean, basically the whole thing. But you make little delineations, for different features. Women have different features than men, so forth like that. And, see, somewhere in between the two, we got the voice of consciousness, all right? And you got like people like Alan Watts, trying to remind you that, no, a tree is not just, like a tree, okay? A tree is the smell of the tree. A tree is the shade of the tree. A tree is where the birds nest. A tree is the bark that you scratch your back against. A tree is the branches that you climb up so you can see around you and see what's out there. Trees even talk to other trees. And the mushroom network, I understand, is kind of like the internet network. It's the internet lines of communication. Like, I understand, because I heard the study and everything on it, the mushroom network is like a communication network for other plants. They use them in the forest. Just saying. See, okay, so the mushroom network is somewhere in between the two segments of my construction. On the one side, my climbing wall. On the other side, my notifications for the best I can do, like, presenting the Sitzenleben, okay? Then giving, two kind of things, like a comic strip and actual true letter that I'm going to say came from my parents. Maybe. I don't know. It's an idea. That avoids me having any liability. But this one is Alan Watts, you never owned anything. And see, that's what the whole point is, it's like you say, like, we have a body. Well, it's not really like you own your body. If you did own it, you'd have more control over it. Your body's gonna die, You are not your body. You have a body. But he's saying, you don't, like, own your body. You never owned anything. I'm going to have to listen and absorb more of these concepts, because these are like the bologna in between the two slices of bread. And it makes a sandwich, actually what it is. So this is the final metaphor for my thinking, okay? Because this is like a bologna sandwich. All right. On one side I got my sign, okay? On the other side I got my climbing wall. In the middle I got sheets of plywood that I painted. My support, okay? Supporting both of them at the same time. That's like the bologna in the middle of the two pieces of bread in the sandwich that I'm making for you, my grandchildren, and for me. I'm beating it off before I die. But the middle piece of bologna is more like what Alan Watts is actually talking about, and I'm going to listen more to him since he's coming up in my algorithm now. This is a phenomenal kind of thing. I heard Alan Watts a long time ago, and now I'm starting to hear about him again. I'm sure he's already dead. says his last radio broadcast was 1972 or 1973, and you know, the little bit I did hear, he's kind of like the Buddha, except talking in more modern terminology and language. Because I have listened, to the Buddha, what Buddha says about everything, and Alan Watts is very, very similar in spirit, and he's making me understand in what colors that I can more understand. And the thing is, okay, we're filters, all right. That's actually the second thing I really wanted to document today, is I understood that because we are filters, okay, we filter everything through our own experience. And I guess we're God's filters. Well, see, the filter is kind of like the bologna in the middle of the sandwich. And we just got to get into that filter, like both sides out, like the bologna. And the bologna is kind of like, almost like a sponge. I mean, if you look at stuff in a microscope, okay, there's more space than there is matter, but it's held together by energy. And that's the same way as a piece of bologna. And you can even look at a piece of bologna with your own eyes and see it's more porous because it's been manufactured. Well, for me, like Alan Watson, this kind of philosophy and stuff like that is kind of like a piece of bologna. Not that it is bologna. I'm not saying it's bologna. I'm saying it's more actually true than anything. It actually makes a sandwich what it is. You need a little bit of mayonnaise or mustard on it too. You want to make it good. Making of a sandwich. I'm just going to call this one the making of a sandwich. All right, bye.